two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction
or zig where we can zag.
We will walk through walls.
We will take a look around us.
We will not be confined.
We believe in the path of least limits.
We won't be told how to view the world.
We will experience true freedom. We will not compromise.
We will live the game through our hands.
We will be in control of something.
We will change the system.
Mario has been a gaming icon for decades, present in countless titles. Although no year in recent memory has gone past without some type of Mario game being released, series fans will remember the nearly decade-long drought of original Mario platformers. From 1997 through 2005, there was only a single new one release, Super Mario Sunshine. During the second part of this drought, after Sunshine's released, the mysterious Super Mario 128 was the main focus of the fan base. No concrete information was given on the game, and eventually, series creator Shigeru Miyamoto claimed it had simply been a series of text concepts that were never intended to be in an actual game. The mystery faded from the memory as the Mario drought finally ended. The most people forgot about the game that had been once the center of every Mario fan's imagination. Mario drought corresponded with a bad era for Nintendo in terms of console sales. The Nintendo 64 and GameCube did not have the fictional success of the earlier Nintendo Entertainment System and Super Nintendo, or the later Wii. For the very proud company that related solely on the video games to make money, this was quite upsetting for the higher-ranking employees, who were attached to the company that felt its success or failure reflected on them personally. Nintendo started working on a sequel to the Super Mario 64 shortly after the game was released. But during the late 90s, it became clear they were not winning a console war. The Super Mario 64 sequel was restarted from scratch, since the company believed it was not the substantial enough improvement over the original to turn the tides of the market battle. Seeming the generally more realistic and violent games on Sony PlayStation, the market leader Nintendo considered making a Mario that was closer in tune to what the public seems to want. There was quite a bit of an internal conflict over how far to go with this new direction, and the new Mario was clearly not going to be ready until Nintendo's next console, the GameCube. The only hint of this release to the public was a comment by Mariano. He apparently thought Mario and Luigi should act more like grown-ups in their games for the then soon-to-be released GameCube. The new Mario project was ultimately split into two games, Luigi's Mansion, which reflected the darker tone that many felt the series should turn to, although it was still toned down quite a bit compared to what some Nintendo executives and developers wanted, and Super Mario Sunshine, which went in a complete opposite direction. Both were released within a year of the GameCube, and Nintendo felt confident that their new system and Mario games would return them to their former glory. As the market's leader, and as a familiar with a gaming history, no, they didn't. The GameCube did even worse in the market share than Nintendo 64. And the mass market taste shift even more toward violent, realistic games. During this period, the sober mooded at Nintendo manifested, and the darker Mario project was revived. This time codenamed Super Mario 128. It isn't clear exactly what happened at Nintendo during this period. As we know, nothing called Super Mario 128 was ever released or publicly shown. The source that revealed the internal strife at Nintendo during the later N64 era refused to discuss what is happening during the time of the GameCube's failure. But release of a prototype of Super Mario 128 online can be played on a Wii homebrew channel. The following is a recollection of my time playing it. The game was clearly in an early beta. The title screen was nothing but a white text saying Super Mario 128 against a black background. There were no options menu or a save file selection either. After the title screen, the game started Bowser's laugh from Super Mario 64 loop in the background, while the plain text box displayed this dialogue.
Mario, I have taken Princess Peach, and she will not live to see the sunrise tomorrow unless you take her place. You know what to do and where to go. Do not try and stop me, unless you want to hasten her death.
This game certainly was going for a darker tone. After I made the text box go away, I was thrust right into the gameplay. The first thing I noticed was that Mario's character model, his body was as detailed as in Super Mario Galaxy, although a little more realistic proportion. But his head was taken from his SM64 character model. Obviously, his design wasn't finished yet. The setting was a sky level. There were some simple platforms floating in the air. The rest of the area was just a blue sky, with several clouds scrolling in the background. They were quite graphically impressive, more realistic than the usual cartoony puff in Mario games. There was no music or full voice samples from Mario, but there was a sound effects grunts when he jumps. The jumping was more subdued than in any other Mario games. He didn't jump as high as he usually did, and you had a little control over his movement in the air. The different types of jumps in every 3D Mario wasn't present. I played through the level. There was nothing especially noticeable about the gameplay. Enemies didn't seem to have been added yet. I just jumped from platform to platform. It wasn't very challenging. As I continued, I noticed the graphics gradually changing. The sky became more and more obscure until it was completely composed of clouds, and the background graphically turned into dark gray. After this, it started to rain. It reached a small platform with a toad on it. It looked like the Super Mario Galaxy model. When I landed the platform, a dialogue appeared.
We don't want you here anymore, Mario. You don't belong here. Just give Bowser what he wants, then die.
After that text went away, I am no longer had a control of Mario. He just stood there for a while turned around and walk off the platform. His body seemed to go limp as if he'd fall. Eventually, it was revealed that there was a realistic modern city under the sky. The buildings looked neglected, but there were people on the street. Mario hit the ground within the realistic sounding thud, but he didn't explode or show any visible wounds. He just lay there, and the people in the city were walking by, ignoring him. although I thought I saw the few glance at him with cold, somewhat angry expression. This went on for a few minutes. Eventually, people stopped appearing. Mario got up. I was back in control, but he couldn't jump at all, and I had to reduce walking speed. The large building of the city didn't appear to be interactive, so I just walked down the streets for a while. Eventually, I found a small house that seemed out of place among the larger building. When I appeared at the door, Mario opened it. The screen went white and a text appeared. House of Torn Memories. This seems to be a level title. When I pressed the button, the screen faded back to Mario. He was inside of a house from before. Everything was seemed bigger than it should have been. Gigantic. But scaled as if Mario was a very small child. The house was filled with normal objects covered in dust and signs of neglect. There were no people on the ground floor, just things were broken lamps and rotten food. I found a door that opened to the set of stairs going down, leading to the basement. In the basement, I found a dissipated couch and a broken TV. However, what really caught my attention was on the couch. Two skeletons appeared to be children, judging by their size. Due to the scale of a house, they were still larger than Mario. I was starting to get really disturbed by now. How had Mario game containing this been programmed to this extent? I went up to the skeletons and tried pressing buttons to interact with them or the TV, but nothing seemed to happen. As I was about to turn around to look at elsewhere, I was nearly scared to death by a definitely loud crash coming from the game. What appears to be Bowser seemed to have broken through the floor from below and landed in front of Mario. I say appeared to be, because he was nothing like the way Bowser was usually rendered. The reptilian monster in the game had Bowser's basic brownish yellow and green colored pattern, but looked far more threatening than any Bowser model I had seen before. Its arm and legs were far longer than relation to its body and ended in the razor-sharp claws. His green shell didn't look like it had a spice glued on. They were more like jagged and organic looking, with the same dark green color the rest of the shell had. The face had small but intense, pure black eyes, and a mouth full of jagged teeth that took far more spaces than it should have. Mario was crowding in fear from this thing. That dialogue box appeared says,
You kept me waiting long enough, Mario. I would taste flesh soon. You will finally surrender. Will you finally surrender, or does Peach have to die?
I still didn't have control. Mario just stood there shivering in several seconds before nodding his head. Bowser then implied Mario with his claws. There was no blood. It was clear from the animation and sound effects that the sharp digits of Bowser's hand had gone through Mario's body. One swift motion, Bowser dragged Mario up to his face and bit his head off. Again, there was no blood or graphic details left behind of Mario's neck. Just Mario character model being destroyed. The screen faded to black and a white text and another level name appeared. Mario's Eternal Home. Mario character's model was whole again. When the level started, there was only one thing on the screen besides the black background. He was floating as if in space. I could somehow control him. I felt more I was deciding a general direction and Mario would tremble. Rather than fully deciding his movement, as I drift towards no apparent destination, the voice faded in. They were echoing deep and telling that Mario that he was worthless, that he was no longer had to use of him, for that everyone would rather be off as if he was dead. High-pitched crying was laid on the top of her voices after a while. It sounded like it was supposed to be Mario's cries. This really disturbed me, but I found myself fighting back tears for reasons I don't understand. This was affecting me on an emotional level. The voices and aimless wandering went for several minutes. After I spotted a light gray speck in the distance, I moved towards it. It looked like a very long time to reach, but it grew closer at a much slower rate than it should have. When I was close enough to make it out, I saw that it was a tombstone. It was a very plain one, cracks in several places. When I got right next to it, I could see writing on its surface. I turned off the system right after reading it. I'm not going to play the beta or hack or whatever this was again. There was a single word written on a tombstone. Innocence.